again for everybody later today. Welch Team Weekly Ask the Agent local market update is happening, and we are going to see what we can do to get this up and running for you guys and make it all the way through. I will go ahead and flip on over to a screen share, and we'll just pretend like there are no problems.
You have one of those awkward pause faces.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Well, here's the airbrushed version of me. Since you can see the awkward pause face version, here's the airbrushed version where I look very nice and lovely. Welcome, September 30th, Ask the Agent. Kelly DeLucia here with George Pottencoulum, and we are going to jump into some information right away. So up first, our weekly trends. You guys have seen us talking about this every single week, and the story remains the same. Today is the last day of the month. So I actually expect these numbers to change a lot for a ton of closings that have yet to happen today. But if you look at what's happened over the last week, you can see that all of our numbers went up, but we are still 24% difference. There's a 24% difference between the number of houses that have hit the market and the number of ones that have gone under contract. So again, I sound like a broken record, but even those houses that didn't go under contract right away, maybe it's taking a little bit longer to sell, they're still selling. Everything is selling right now. So, pretty much everything except vacant land is selling right now. And I think vacant land presents a unique challenge because there are all sorts of things and costs that are rising on the new construction build side. So that is a little bit different. But if you live in a house, a condo, a townhouse, your house is going under contract. George?
No, I agree. I was just going to say, add on to the vacant land aspect of it. If you have one-off land or some land around, I'm seeing a ton of new construction that is being added in, not your main builders like the DR Hortons, the KBs, Dreamfinders. What we're seeing is a lot of the smaller builders going in, buying that land and putting homes on them with several different real estate companies. Just got a list from one of my investors who they have probably like 30 homes in permitting right now.
Wow. Yep.
And they're all one-off homes. They range anywhere from 189 to 270, I believe. And all throughout from San Marco to the west side to the north side. So even that vacant land is getting scooped up and will get developed here in the near future. And a lot of these homes are as soon as it comes out of permitting, it's 90 days to completion. So you're not waiting 7 to 8 months into getting these homes built. There's set plans. There's only like 3 different floor plans out there. But I mean, the land will go as well because people love new homes.
Yeah. I mean, what's not to like when you can pick out your own finishes if you have the time to wait. So George is talking a lot about one-off lots that developers are buying up, like one over here, or maybe a parcel that they can subdivide. But there are some even smaller 10, 15, 20 house communities that I've also seen popping up in some really random places. So anywhere that builders can find somewhere to throw up a home, they're doing it. We are going to get into that actually a little bit more when we go back into some national news. But if we continue on with our weekly trends, why are sales slowing down? Actually, let me go back one. Just so you see down here, lag time, I say when you put a house under contract, lag time to close about 60 days. That's what the little asterisk says. I mean, right now we're seeing 90 days, 120 days lag time because lenders are not able to process those files. So it has nothing to do with the buyer or the buyer's ability to purchase the property and their financial history. It simply has to do with moving the paperwork through the process.
Processing, appraisals,
yes,
inspections, everything has a little bit of a delay on it. So it's just adding up. So where you could typically be contract to close in 30 days is now almost double.
Right. So we've been cautioning everybody out there, let's have some realistic expectations. The lenders can't keep up. Some lenders are starting to limit the number of applications they'll take daily because they don't have the staff to process those loans. We are seeing lenders who are keeping up, constantly searching for qualified people to join their companies and join their teams to help in this really busy time. And those people, the lenders that are able to keep up, they're grinding out 15, 18-hour days to keep up with that workload. Maybe not some, maybe those are some of our local lenders that we can certainly connect you with. Some of the large lenders that you might not be able to get a hold of after 5, 6 o'clock every day, they're shutting it down and they're going home. But the ones that are keeping up, they're certainly under massive amounts of stress. The Fed, so we talked a little bit about this about a month or so ago, that we thought we would see an increase in refi rates to help slow down the mortgage application process. That was put on hold. Word on the street is that's going to come back around again. So refis will still be attractive, but maybe not as attractive as they are right now. That is to help slow down what's happening in the mortgage industry. Inventory, again, if you don't have a house to sell, then you're going to slow down sales. And supply shortages. So the builders are feeling that the most and trying to get product to build their properties, even things like at the design center. And George, have you seen anything where certain features for certain builders maybe haven't been available because they're, or if it is, it might not be installed by close date?
Appliances have been a big factor. We see that a lot. We definitely see some cabinet choices because some of the materials were coming from overseas, and then you couldn't ship whole cabinets. So you had to wait until those parts were in order to be able to get those parts in time. So yeah, there's definitely been some delays. There's definitely been some choices that people have made haven't been available. So they typically get upgraded. I know went through a whole slew of everybody getting upgraded refrigerators and dishwashers because the standard ones were just not available and were not going to be available anytime soon. So there's definitely been some changes there where builders have also had to adjust. And that's just those are the small things in regards to lack of labor, lack of lumber, increasing costs of all of that as well. So there's issues, and there's definitely a lot of challenges that people are trying to overcome. But it's part of what happens when we have this type of a market, where we will continue to do this for the better half of this year, probably going into this time next year, before we probably see any sort of a change.
I think you're right. All right, so moving on. So what do we have? Let's share our screen again. So that's our local market. That's what we're seeing here locally, but why? What are some of the whys behind what's happening, not only here, but in other parts of the country? We spoke a little bit about unemployment last week, and certainly I'm not an economist and I'm not a labor, statistic expert, but we do know that unemployment has been trending in the right direction, that we are seeing unemployment around 8 to 9%. And we'll just have to monitor that and see what happens. But when we reach the 8 to 9% threshold, that is pretty much where the government looks at it and says, we're not in any sort of recessionary, economy. And again, I want to note, I don't know all this information personally. George doesn't know all this information personally. So you are going to see some slides here that I've collected information, and George and I have watched many webinars and conference calls on what's happening out there and are using the information that has been provided to us. So give credit where credit is due. And I do see on the Facebook page that it looks like, for those of you who are watching, that it keeps going in and out. So if you have a question and we go in and out, type your question and hopefully we'll pop back up and we'll be able to answer it at that point in time. So I am trying to monitor that still. So back to our topic, One of the things that does impact the unemployment numbers is, people who, we saw this in 08, 09, 10, you see people who, whenever we have this type of situation, obviously we haven't had a pandemic in 100 years, but when you have something that impacts the labor force, that forces people out of their full-time jobs, you will see people that do not enter back again. And that can be for a variety of reasons. In this case, the top 5 issues on the screen: people became ill or maybe disabled. People decided to flip into some sort of secondary or maybe technical school education. So they've used this opportunity to, advance their career maybe in a different direction or get further training. Some people were forced out. So people were forced to retire, maybe given severance packages by their companies as they look forward, as those companies looked out on the horizon and said, we just don't see how we're going to be able to bring all these people back, especially the tenured folks. Transportation issues. So maybe not so much a big deal in North Florida, but if you were somebody who relied upon public transportation to get to work, and public transportation was either shut down, limited, or you are uncomfortable taking public transportation to get to your place of employment, that's a big issue too. And then family and home responsibilities. So, there are a lot of people out there who might have trouble getting childcare, might not want to get childcare, might need to physically be at home to help with schooling concerns as well. So those are the top 5 things being monitored, but overall rounds up to about 3.7 million people who are not going to re-enter the labor force, which is a significant number.
Well, I'm surprised that family and home responsibility isn't probably the top reason why, because so much has changed. I mean, between schools and work from home, stay at home, school from home, I feel like that has been probably the biggest change for a majority of the people.
I think you're right. I mean, around here anyways, I think that that's been a really big change for us, which is a significant number. That's me. Ooh, that means the live is working. Yay. Maybe it's working.
Ooh, so it's back up and running.
So continuing forward, where does that take us in terms of the real estate industry? Because real estate has really been driving a lot of that recovery. This is an ongoing theme. Nationally, you can see some of the larger markets. I'm not sure how clear this might be on your screen, but some of the markets that are driving new home purchase changes year over year. Jacksonville, little outline there, up 67%, and is one of the top 10 cities driving some of those purchasing things in new construction. I'm trying to breeze through these ones for you guys just so that we don't take so long today. And I know we had a lot of technical difficulties. Things that we monitor when we're looking at, where do we go from here? We talked last week, a lot of home equity, a lot of sellers, especially here with a lot of home equity, even some sellers that may have bought less than a year ago. Depending on where you are in North Florida, you might have some equity in your home. Stock market, there are a lot of people out there who watch that. I mean, even last night, right? We had a presidential debate and, tracking the stock market and the futures market as it goes. So whether or not those are true indicators, those are things that the economists are going to take a look at. Interest rates. We talked about interest rates changing, especially on the refi side. Consumer confidence. If people become more confident about the country's ability to recover, about a vaccine being put in place, about medical advances that can help us, that can help impact other areas of the industry. More houses come available on the market, more supply might help to balance out our problem right now with the supply and demand. So those are some of the overall big things. I know George hasn't said anything in a few minutes, but I'm going to ask him to chime in here. I'm just trying to keep moving. Sorry, George.
You're talking. I'm just going to let you go.
I know, right? So something that we have experienced here, and George, I'll rely upon your expertise in this segment. we have been talking a lot on our team about builder price increases. So this slide is nationally from Metro study of all new home builders, well, the new home builders that participated, 96% of those participated in this survey had increased base pricing in September. So that means that they increased that average advertised price per floor plan. And that doesn't even get into some of the features, some of the design center option items. So we are probably sitting right here in the 31 to 14% range. Would you say that's accurate, George?
Yes, I agree. I mean, and it depends on the builder and depends on the area, but yes, there have been price increases since about June, I want to say, because that's when if the rush happened with homes. With then July, August, as we ran into those summer months, we ran into the inventory issue. I mean, the lumber and labor issues. So that's continued on. And right about that time, we started seeing more and more increases. The heavy demand for a new home was so significant that builders couldn't keep up. And when all the inventory sold and everything that was planned out had already been sold, they very quickly raised the prices. And we've seen that across Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Orange Park, where in our local markets, we have continued to see anywhere between that 5 to 7 range increase on the base prices, just to accommodate, the increase in costs as well as the increase in demand. And people are continuing to buy. So if you happen to be looking at new construction beginning of this year or last year, in comparison to now, you are probably paying about 10 to 12,000 more in the base price, which is great for those people that purchased a home last year in those same communities. Yes. And it will continue to probably to increase as we go into next year. So you still have an opportunity to gain a little bit of equity before we see any sort of a shift in our market. Which kind of leads up to a question that came up. We did have all house prices had gone up now. Is this a good time to buy a home or flip? Flip. Our price is expected to fall.
Yeah, that was the comment from the live, right? You picked up the slide. All right, good.
So I mean, it's great. It's it's one of those things that nobody has a magic ball to know, hey, is this going to increase? Are we going to have a recession? Nobody knows. But when we look at the trends and we look at everything that's been going on, we are going to continue to increase in value. At some point, we'll have a level off and we will see it. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. We've seen increase level. So that is what the trend will be moving forward for at least as far as we can see looking into the next year, I'd say.
I think you're right. I think that we talked about this last week, but when we, going back to the question or the comment from our Facebook feed, to flip or just to resell any property, home prices have been increasing. Nobody knows where they'll stop, right? Like home prices will increase. And by the time you notice that they're taking a turn the opposite direction, it'll have already happened. So, while we can't predict the future, we have a pretty good idea of where we're at now and where we might be going. So now is a great time to sell in conjunction with interest rates being so low because buyers are still able to afford those price increases. So we showed a few graphics last week that I'll put back up again at the end of our presentation that gives a really good idea of how that increase in price coupled with lower interest rates still works out as a win-win for all the parties. But that's a great question. So hopefully we answered that for you. So moving to our next slide. Oh, one other thing. George, I'm not sure if any of your contracts have experienced this, but have you had any buyers who were already under contract with the builder that the builder enacted their clause to increase the purchase price even since they first went under contract? You know what I mean?
Yes. I have I've heard about it, but luckily none of my buyers have experienced that. But I have heard a couple of times where that has had to happen, both from the builder side and from other agents mentioning that because of significant increase in cost that they had to make that change
Right.
in the pricing of a particular home.
Makes sense. I mean, so check your contracts. You know, if you guys went to a builder, one of the things that we stress is don't go to a builder without representation. If you have a 55-page builder contract and you're not sure how or when something like what we're talking about could happen, you know, reach out, let us know, we can help you out. But those are things that you can and should be aware of going forward. So George, you brought this up earlier, vacant developed land. I had actually never seen VDL by Metro before, but this was something that was brought up last week on our Myers Research call. And Jacksonville, again, popped up on one of those lists as being, you know, a hotspot for new construction. So VDL is exactly what you were talking about in terms of vacant developed land. Like, are those builders snatching up more land to try and throw up houses, even if they're onesie twosies? And according to this, we are right in the thick of it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 on the list in the country.
I mean, and it's true because for as old as a city as we have, you do see a lot of land that had an older home, a mobile home, just land that's been sitting vacant in between our metro areas that can be used in or can be added into one house, maybe 2 houses, or even larger. As you said, we're seeing several communities being developed from land that was there, whether it was a farm or a big commercial area, whatever it might be, and added 15 to 30 size community, 30 home size community in there, which is great, which does add a lot of value to some of those specific areas. And people who need those type of homes, I mean, you have the ability to be in a home in 4 to 5 months versus being into 7 to 9 months. So
right,
it makes a big difference.
What's the big difference? I think we got a little bit out of order here, but we'll talk about rent anyways. So rent, one of the things we get a lot of questions about, especially flippers or people that have investment properties with tenants in them, you know, what's happening with the moratorium on not being able to evict tenants, the questions along those lines. But overall, I understand that everybody and every rental property might have a different story to tell, but overall nationally, rent payments are being made on time, 80% of the time, and if not 100%, you know, by the beginning of the month, 90% of those tenants are paying by the 20th of the month. So it might be taking a little bit longer for them to get their rent payment in, but they're doing what they can to make them. So that's good. And then mortgage delinquencies by severity. So this is a big one, especially for the people out there who think all of a sudden we're going to have this rush of foreclosures hit the market. And from everything that we know and everything that we've been hearing, it's not going to happen like that. It's not going to be this big just gush of houses that are, you know, come on the market, everyone's late, everyone's getting their house, you know, taken back by the bank. It's going to be a trickle. And the reason why it's going to be a trickle is because that overall, even the people that took forbearance for the first 6 months, they have been slowly coming back on, you know, and making those mortgage payments. Some of the data says that those people that took that forbearance for the first 6 months had the ability to pay, but they decided that for whatever reason, it made more sense for them to take advantage of the situation. Those people you can see in this line here, you know, Q3 of, sorry, March, not Q3, March of 2020, for the people that were already delinquent, they're still delinquent. and that's what that gray line is. So if it was bad in March, it's even worse now. And, that's not great news for those individuals. And some of those people were the hardest impacted by an economic shutdown, or maybe losing their job in the hospitality or service industry or entertainment industry. But that's really what we're seeing. So by all, accounts, I think what we're hearing is probably January, February timeframe is when in Duval County and St. Johns County, Clay County, the areas of North Florida, we might see some of those properties start to hit the market.
I don't know where to go from there, but I mean, that's a great point there. The good thing is, I mean, but overall, I mean, looking at the overall, delinquency aspects of it, we are seeing it at some point starting to level off and to start going down. So we will see some changes. We will see some up and down depending on, some of those far distant ones starting to come back down and the ones starting to increase. So I think overall we will be able to get to a level off point where we're able to catch everything back up and not have as far of a delinquency as one would expect.
Which is the good news for everyone. And then mortgage rates. So we've been talking about low mortgage rates, low. Today, this morning, the Mortgage Bankers Association came out and said that we have hit another new record of 3.05% for those 30-year fixed mortgages. Lowest rate ever recorded by the Mortgage Bankers Association. And that would be for conforming mortgages, 510 or less. So everyone who's applied for a mortgage know that the mortgages have certain loan limits. So for those valued at 510, $400 or less, you are looking at the lowest national average on record, which is incredible.
Which is crazy to think about, if that is what the low is, and imagine what everybody else has been paying over the past 5 years or so. So if you haven't, hate to continue to look at it, but if you haven't refinanced, it's probably a good time to talk to your lender. And
or it's a good time to sell your home and get into a home that is more expensive, upgrade your home and keep your mortgage payments the same because you've got a lower interest rate.
Very, very true. That's probably a better way to look at it. So we all make a little bit of money.
Exactly. And we can put more inventory out on the market for all those buyers who are struggling to find something.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing that I wanted to go over again this week, because it seems to have come up even on our comments today. But I just want to reiterate for everybody out there that just like we were talking right now with the historically low interest rates, there still seems to be a disparity between those that think it's a good time to buy and those that think it's a good time to sell. And really right now, it is an excellent time for buyers and sellers. So our example here today shows how an increased purchase price or an increased mortgage amount. So if you're a buyer, if you're looking at upgrading your home, getting a bigger home, moving to a different part of town, whatever it may be, and your mortgage amount is currently $250, but you want to buy something that's at $263, the difference in your interest rate is actually going to save you money on those monthly payments. And if we look at that in a little bit of reverse as well, for those of you who are thinking, oh, I'm going to hang around and I'm not going to buy something until the market crashes. Well, guess what? If the market crashes, and we don't think here it's going to crash as much as some people expect it to, maybe more of a leveling off. If home prices go down even substantially, in our example here, this is a $50,000 price difference. But when you start to see those interest rates tick up, that less expensive home actually is going to cost you more money on a monthly basis. So if you are thinking that it might be the time to do something, let us know. We are very happy to help. We are very happy to answer the questions. We're happy to connect you with lenders who can help get you more concrete information on what you can or cannot afford, and take a look at all the options and what makes the most sense for you and your personal needs. I don't see any, I think my feed stopped again, so I can't see any questions. If we don't have any questions,
Nope,
we
doesn't
are
look like we have anything extra. It's popped up.
okay. Well,
Oh, take that back. There is a question. What happens to my buying power when rates go up? We just answered that in the last slide. So
that's right. Your buying power goes down when rates go up. It is still extremely affordable. The affordability index to purchase a home right now, all signs point to yes. And I'm throwing my pen. I'm so excited over here. That is all for us today. Thank you guys again for putting up with our technical challenges, and we appreciate you joining us weekly. I'm Kelly.
I'm George. Bye.
See you next time.